All right, fifth graders, today our focus is going to be on estimating the quotient. Once again, keyword is quotient. We're going to be doing some estimating, obviously. You'll remember from the video for 6.2, the quotient is the answer to a division problem. So we want to remember that we are going to be dealing with division. Now we're estimating. Now when we estimate division, and we're going to do 6 examples here in the video. The first 3 all just have these one-digit dividers. So in this situation with this one-digit divider, this 5, that's not going to change. That's going to stay a 5. We're not going to do anything with that. And so I think to myself, well, can 5 go into 1? Well, no, 5 can't. Can 5 go into 16? Well, yes, 5 can go into 16. Now, we know from our 5 times tables that it's not evenly going to go into 16, but it can go into it. At this point now, this is the question I have to ask myself. And this is often where I find that students kind of have a little difficulty with this skill, okay? I have to think about my 5 times tables, and I ask myself, what is the closest I get to 16 with my answers in the 5 times tables, what my different products are. So I'm thinking 5 times 1 is 5, 5 times 2 is 10, 5 times 3 is 15, 5 times 4 is 20, 5 times 5 is 25. And those are the numbers I'm thinking of, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Those numbers that show up as answers in the 5 times tables. Well, when I stop and think about that, the closest I get to 16 is 15, because we know that 5 times 3 is 15. It doesn't matter whether it's higher. It doesn't matter whether it's lower than the original number. Sometimes the new number you get will be higher than the original number. In this case, it's 1 lower. What's important is that it is the closest. The 16 becomes a 15. Everything else becomes a 0. And I end up doing 1,500 divided by 5. Well, 1,500 divided by 5. 15 divided by 5 is 3. And then there's no zeros here to cross off. So those 2 zeros need to become part of my answer. And that is what you need to write down. You need to write down the new numbers with the new answer. Let's look at the next one. 327 divided by 4. Well, the 4, it's a one-digit number, so it's going to stay the same. I know that 4 can't go into 3, but 4 can go into 32. The closest I get to 32 with my products in the 4 times tables is 32, because I know that 4 times 8 is 32. So here's an example where that 32 is just going to stay a 32. My 7 is going to become a 0, and I end up with 320 divided by 4. Well, once again, I'm going to think 32 divided by 4. 32 divided by 4 is 8. There's no 0 here to cross off. There's 1 here that needs to become part of my answer. I end up with 0. 5,672 divided by 5. 5,672 divided by 5. Well, I'm not going to do anything with this one-digit number. But here's something that's a little bit different, and that's why we put an example like this on here. Because 5 can go into 5. So I don't even go to 56. I just deal with the 5, because 5 can go into 5. And the closest that I get to 5 in my 5 times tables is 5. So my 5 is going to stay a 5. My 6, 7, and 2 are all going to become zeros. And I end up with 5,000 divided by 5. Well, and 5,000 divided by 5, 5 divided by 5 is 1. There's no zeros here to cross off, So all three of those zeros need to get added into my answer. My final answer is 1,000. All right, now the next part here gets a little bit different because now we're going to have two-digit divisors. This first one is 6,419 divided by 91. Well, in this situation, the first thing that I want to do is take my divisor here and round it to the greatest place value, which remember what greatest place value means, the place way to the left. So I'm going to have 9. The 1 is going to tell me what to do. The 1 tells me to round down and keep the 9 a 9. So it's going to stay a 9. That's going to become a 0. It's going to be divided by 90. Now, I'm using a 9 here. And I know that 9 cannot go into 6. But I do know that 9 can go into 64. So I'm back to that question again. When it comes to my answers or products in my 9 times tables, what's the closest I get to 64? Well, the closest I can get to 64 with products in the 9 times tables is 63, because I know that 9 times 7 is 63. Once again, doesn't matter whether it's higher or lower. It just has to be the closest one. My 1 and my 9 become zeros. And now I have a problem that looks like what I did yesterday. 63 divided by 9 is 7. I can cross off 1 0 here, which means I can cross off 1 0 there. I have 1 0 left. I get 70. That's going to be my final answer. 3,572 divided by 82. Once again, I'm going to take 82 and I'm going to round it to the greatest place value. The 8's in the greatest place value, so I'm looking at the 2. Remember the rules of rounding. Less than 5, I round down. So I'm going to round down. When I round down, my 8's going to stay an 8. So it's going to be divided by 80. 8 cannot go into 3, but 8 can go into 35. So the question I'm asking myself is, for my products or my answers in my 8 times tables, what's the closest I get to 35? Well, I'm going to think that it's 8 times 4 is 32. 32 is only 3 away from 35. If I go to 8 times 5, I get 40. 40 is 5 away from 35. Once again, the new number that I get can be bigger than this number. It can be smaller than this number. It doesn't matter. It just has to be the closest one. 8, 35, the closest one is 32. My 7 and my 2 become zeros. 32 divided by 8 is 4. I cross off 1 0 here. I cross off 1 0 there. The canceling out. There's 1 0 left. That has to become part of my answer. I get a final answer of 40. And that's what happens there. All right, next one. All right, we're going to look at one more after this because I want to point something else out. Actually, I'm kind of thinking about that as I'm making this. So we're going to add one more. But it won't be hard. 86, greatest place value. I'm looking at the 6. The 6 is telling me what to do with the 8. 5 and higher, we round up. So the 8 has to become a 9, which means that the 86 becomes 90. Then I think, well, 9 cannot go into 8, but 9 can go into 85. So I want to think, in my products, my answers in my 9 times tables, what's the closest I get to 85? Well, the closest I get to 85 is 81, which is only 4 away from 85. If I go to 9 times 10, I'd get 90, which is 5 away from 85. So this is closer. My 85 becomes an 81. My 9 and my 2 become zeros. I'm thinking 81 divided by 9. Well, 81 divided by 9 is 9. I cross 1 0 off here. I cross 1 0 off here and canceling out. There's 1 left that needs to become part of my answer. And I get 90. And that's what I get as a final answer. All right, I want to point something else out. All right, and it's going to be a pretty basic example. We're going to go with 3,065, and we're going to divide that by 42. All right, and I want to point something out here. It's going to be the same way we did. We're going to round this to the greatest place value. The 4 is in the greatest place value, so the 2 is telling me what to do. Okay? The 2 is telling me to round down because less than 5 I round down. So my 4 is going to stay a 4. The 2 is going to become a 0, so I know I'm dividing by 40. I know that 4 can't go into 3, but I do know that 4 can go into 30. Not evenly, but remember that doesn't matter. Now, so I'm trying to figure out what's the closest I can get to 30 in my 4 times tables. Well, I know that 4 times 7 equals 28, and I know that 4 times 8 equals 32. And what's interesting here is, though, that 28 is only 2 away from 30. 32 is only 2 away from 30. So when you get a situation like that, you have to think, well, what direction do I go? Well, think about rounding. If you're right in the middle, which way do you go? The rules of rounding tell us when we're right in the middle, when you have that 5, you round up. So when we're right in the middle between 28 and 32, like we are with 30, you're always going to go with the higher one. And so in this situation, the 30 would become 32. The 6 and the 5 are going to become zeros. 32 divided by 4 is 8. I have 1 0 here to cross off. I have 1 0 there to cross off. That 0 gets added to my answer. I get 80. All right? That's estimating quotients. All right, we'll talk to you later. 5th graders, bye.